Israel. I hope everybody is having a blessed day. Today, we're talking about the breaking of wedlock. We're talking about sowing seeds unrighteously in virgin soil. When we look at statistics, the rate of women being virgins at marriage is going down the drain. Last night I was talking about producing good stock in Israel, making sure that we pay it forward, giving righteous affirmations to the upcoming generation. Man, we live in a very unrighteous, very volatile society where, men oftentimes get less of the shame and women get majority of the shame for them being defiled and for them being unpure, having these issues that are stopping them from being selected as wives. But I tell you, behind every woman that has defiled her body, has defiled her soil, there is a man that took part in this act. And you don't hear very many like today is a day of Christian worship, Sunday sun worship, but you don't hear these kind of teachings in Christendom or Christianity or Catholicism, because these are theologies that are apart from the law of the Most High. And this is why when you hear their teachings, you hear their false doctrine and vain doctrine that has been hijacked from a Hebraic Israelite book. This is why it's always void of Torah. And today we're talking about, like I said, breaking wedlock, the planting, the sowing of seed in unrighteously in virgin soil. When we look at statistics, let's look at this. And it's dwindled. It says the number of women who were virgins when married has dropped each decade since the 1970s, from 21% then to 5%. And now the statistic that I saw is like 1.9% of women will walk down the aisle and their husband will not be getting a virgin. We're talking about a woman that is engaged with a man who has sowed seeds unrighteously, and that soil is now polluted. If you think about toxins in a soil, if you think about agricultural, if you think about farming and gardening, the wrong chemical in soil can do so much damage. If you were to take a drop of motor oil and drop it in a 5-gallon bucket of soil that you were growing something in, it affects the livelihood of what you are growing. And with each time a man and a woman defile themselves, the woman is it's gonna be a different burden on the woman than it is the man. Every drop of seed of sinful behavior that a woman takes part in is gonna play a role in how that womb functions throughout her prime. Meaning, if you have defiled yourself and taken part in the breaking of wedlock and fornication and sexual immorality, don't be surprised if all of this actions has caused you to be infertile. have all of these fertility issues one day when you walk down the aisle, and back in the day, you might have been known as Fertile Myrtle. See, men oftentimes, when we look in this daytime and hour on social media, there's men out there telling you that they love God, they love Jesus, and they'll have the pendants and the crosses, and it looks very good to those that are unlearned and unstudied. But these are the men, that have taken part in using their influence to tell men, other men, the next generation of men, to be fornicators, to be sexually immoral. And I want you to think back as a man or a woman when you lost your virginity. I was in high school as far as when I got introduced to, having sex, being a fornicator, being sexually immoral. Man, a lot of people are out here jacked up, men and women, behind their actions, and these people are on the other side of the world. Everywhere that there is a man that has taken part in breaking of wedlock, there's a woman somewhere out there that has that body count on her scoreboard. And you very rarely hear men talking about taking accountability and asking for forgiveness and repenting from those ways. We live in a daytime and hour where we're seeing uh, more acts of fornication and sexual immorality and adultery surface in the modern Sunday church than we are teachings from Torah. That is a very alarming rate from the 1970s, from a woman being 21% of women being a virgin at the time of marriage, to 2010, 5%. So when you think about it, in 2010, 95% of the women that were being walked down the aisle had already been defiled. Had already been defiled. And we're going to talk about the popping of a woman's cherry, that blood covenant right there, and how that is significant to wedlock. So when we look, let's go back. I want you to understand that in this culture that we live in now, in order to produce good stock, as far as, righteous young men and women that can one day enter into a union that the Most High Yah will acknowledge without being defiled, there has to be the teachings from Torah that support that. They're not going to do it on their own if left to the ways of the world and free will. It's just not going to happen. When we look at Ephesians 5:5, it says, "For this you know, that no whoremonger, nor clean person, nor covetous man who is an idolater have any inheritance in the kingdom of Hamashiach and Yah." So all of these men that play religious while not fulfilling a duty to any of these women that they have laid with will not inherit the kingdom of Hamashiach and the Most High Yah. You're going to have to turn. You're going to have to repent for these ways. When we look at whoremonger, that's G4205, okay? And that word is pornos. So when you think about where does porno come from, you're looking at the Greek word G4205, okay? When we look at the Strong's definition, it is a male prostitute. Okay, a fornicator, a man who prostitutes his body to another's lust for hire, a male prostitute, a man who indulges in unlawful sexual intercourse, a fornicator. This is what you don't get oftentimes. You hear women being called whores, hoes, harlots, 304s, but nobody is gunning hard for the whoremonger. In order to have a whore, you have to have a monger. You have to have unrighteously, men that are willing to sow their seed in a whore in order for that field or that soil to be defiled. So a whoremonger is a man who indulges in unlawful sexual intercourse, a fornicator. You can't find biblically where the Most High Yah permits for you as a man, for the lust of your flesh, to plant seed in a woman and not fulfill any kind of duty towards her. But that is what has happened. And I'm an advocate for making sure not only do the women understand this, because by the time a woman in the modern day time and hour, is trying to figure out, why does not a man want to take me as a wife? There's so many spiritual issues going on that stem from this issue. As a woman, you have to realize biblically that there is a high price for a virgin. And women are often shamed and told something is wrong with them, if they're not conducting themselves like the worldly women, like 95% of the women who have lost their virginity uh prior to marriage. You have, in this daytime and hour, you have women that are in their 30s and 40s, and women and men will shame those women if they aren't married and saying something is wrong with them. But I'll let you know that the Most High Yah has unlocked the womb of several older women biblically. And I want you to think of this. Do you think the Most High Yah wants a woman that is defiled? The soil is defiled. The woman is unrepented, committing all these acts of whoredom, sexual immorality, and fornication. Or do you think the Most High Yah wants the 30 or 40-year-old virgin who is unmarried, who hasn't been defiled? This world has a crazy way of shaming the righteous. That 30-year-old virgin that potentially is living at home under the covering of her father will be told there's something wrong with her. There will be a heavy force upon her trying to get her to conduct herself like the 95% of the women who have broken wedlock and defiled themselves, the whore and the whoremonger. When we look at the word consummate, the word consummate means to make a marriage complete by having sexual intercourse. This is how the Most High Yah puts his laws in our inward parts. A marriage is consummated when a man inserts himself into the woman. Oftentimes, we have justified ourselves due to delusional thinking that nothing is wrong with this. When you think about that statistic of 95% of women not being virgins at the time of marriage, and how much that is gassed up the defiled women. You're wanting extravagant this, extravagant that. But biblically, there is a high price for a virgin. There's not a high price for a harlot. for a whore. There's not a high price for a woman that has allowed men to unrighteously sow seed. We live in a daytime, an hour of baby mama and baby daddy culture, and it's getting worse. It's getting worse. You don't hear, out of all these videos that I post, you hear men and women doubling down in their rebellion, and you don't see the fruits of repentance. Ezekiel 16 verse 38, and it says, "And I will judge thee as women that break wedlock and shed blood." I want you to think about this. When a man goes inside of a virgin, there is a blood sacrifice right then and there. We have men out here that aren't raised and reared in truth, that find this as a thrill, sticking their dirty little fingers in the daughters of Zion, smell my fingers. This is the kind of stuff that we grow up in. And it says, "And I will give thee blood and fury and jealousy." Men, don't think you are getting off scot-free from breaking wedlock and a woman being a virgin and you don't pay the price. Biblically, we're going to see where there is a price that has to be paid. You know, there are more people walking around with strong delusion that the Most High Yah sent them because they don't love the truth. You know, it's teaching like these where you will become the enemy to the religious people that are under a strong delusion because you're coming from Torah, which under their teaching and understanding is done away with. Second Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 7 through 12. "For the mystery of lawlessness is already at work." When you think about that statistic already, you know, getting worse and worse. And right now, if it is accurate, being 1.9% of women that walk down the aisle that are taken in marriage are virgins. That is a small percentage. Verse 8, "And then the lawless one will be revealed, whom the Lord Yahshua will kill them with the breath of his mouth and bring to nothing by the appearance of his coming. The coming of the lawless one is by the activity of Hasatan with all power and false signs and wonders, and with all wicked deceptions for those who are perishing, because they refuse to love the truth and so be saved. Therefore, Yah sends them a strong delusion, so that they may believe what is false, in order that they all may be condemned who did not believe the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness." We're living in a generation of people, more so than ever, that take pleasure in unrighteousness. You know, a man will talk about how a woman is not wife material, but very seldomly are you going to hear a man talk about how he's taking part in ensuring that this woman's soil is defiled. You know, on a lot of these dating shows and Pop the Balloon and Kendra G's, oftentimes we see women, you know, asking for quality men. We want a good man, you know, in their own eyes. And then when the question is asked, "When is the last time you've been intimate or had sex?" Then nobody wants to comment. And when they press them on this topic, you find out that these people have been sexually active, and it's not within a marriage or as a woman being covered. We live in a society that takes pleasure in living unrighteous. When you look at the word diminished, made smaller or less, men and women have diminished themselves. And this is why there's so many problems amongst the men, amongst the women. You know, you got men out here, you know, that have defiled themselves to the point where they wouldn't know what to do with a virgin if they got their hands on one. You got men out there saying they don't want a woman because she's not freaky enough. This woman doesn't lick man's butthole, so we don't want her. You got women out there that are walking down the aisle that have expectations of, getting with a man 10 inches or plus when a virgin, as a man, and a man that hasn't defiled himself and a woman that hasn't defiled themselves, they don't know any different because they're pure. We're dealing with some complete foolishness, and it comes from living lawless. It comes from living unrighteous. When we look at Exodus 22:16-17, it says, if a man seduces a virgin who is not betrothed and lies with her, he shall give the bride price for her and make her his wife. If her father utterly refuses to give her to him, he shall pay money equal to the bride price for virgins. Think about this. We live in a daytime and hour. I used to be one of the brothers where I had the gift of gab. Men out here have it. This is conversations that I have with my two sons and with my daughter. Just because it's available and you have that gift of gab to seduce a virgin and you lie with her, consummating, there's a price that has to be paid. And a lot of what we see today is not according to Torah. Verse 17, if her father, you got to think, we got so many women out here whose fathers are not in their life, and men prey on these women because they know there's no protection, there's no covering. Unrighteously lustful man preys on uncovered women. As a man, there's a higher probability of you getting ran off, of you getting shot, of losing your life when a woman is covered. Women, I can't encourage you enough. Don't be so quick to leave home and go out into the world. Stay up under your father if you have one. You got to think, as a woman, if you go off and get married, leave your covering as a father, hitch yourself to a man, but your father never gave you away, don't be surprised if that union does not work out. Don't be surprised. Fathers out here, you have to protect not only your daughters from the lustful men that want to seduce your virgin daughter, but you have to ensure your virgin daughter understand that it's a bunch of wolves out here. It's a bunch of wolves, and they are bloodthirsty. None of them wanting to fulfill a duty. So if the father does not want to give his daughter up, but a man has seduced her who is not betrothed and lies with her, he shall pay money equal to the bride price. How many, you got to think about these men. How many men could pay the debt of all the women that they have laid with? It's a lot of debt in these acts of fornication. If the father chooses not to, give his daughter up. And the word says in Ecclesiastes, fathers, give your daughter to a man of understanding. Marry her, and you have performed a weightier matter. Let's keep going. 1 Corinthians 6:20, for you were brought with a price, so glorify Yah in your body. You were bought with a price. So glorify Yah in your body. You are the temple of the living Elohim. That's men and women. The problem is not only the women being defiled, we got a bunch of horny, hot, hot in the back, wanting to blow all of the young women out, defiling all the soil. All of these single mothers out here are not IVF mothers. They're not single mothers by choice. You saw what the word says for a man that seduces a virgin. How's a man gonna do that with fair speech? He gonna tell you whatever you want to hear to talk those draws off. Girl, you look like Halle Berry. Anybody ever told you that? Yeah, and then here's another one. Daughters of Zion, you need to be mindful of the man that seduces you with things that he will do in the future. Yeah, girl, one day I'm gonna marry you. One day I'm gonna marry you is different from him actually marrying you and consummating marriage. It's a lot different. I want you to be my wife. That's different than making you a wife, a covered woman. It's a lot different. Women, you got to understand, you cannot have your guard be let down based upon fair speech and you are uncovered. Your father's not there. And these men come seduce you. Men have gotten good at this. It shows you statistically, men have gotten better at seducing women. And men go run on and live their life, keep doing it. And these women are left with defiled soil trying to figure out, man, why won't my body function the way it's supposed to? And every time a man has planted seeds unrighteously in that woman, it's like you taking a tomato plant in a 5-gallon bucket and dropping each time a man, lets it go in her, dropping a drop of old motor oil in there. Wondering why that womb it won't operate the way it's supposed to. Let's go to Deuteronomy. So when we go to Deuteronomy 22, okay, let's look at this. Starting at verse 13, if any man takes a wife and goes into her, okay, that's consummation, and then hates her and accuses her of misconduct and brings a bad name upon her, saying, I took this woman. When I came near her, I did not find evidence of virginity. What is the evidence of virginity? The evidence of virginity is that blood, what they call the cherry, and it popping. Verse 15, then the father of the young woman and her mother shall take and bring out the evidence of her virginity to the elders in the city in the gate. And the father of the young woman shall say to the elders, I gave my daughter to this man to marry, and he hates her. And behold, he has accused her of misconduct. I did not find in your daughter's evidence of virginity, and yet is the evidence of my daughter's virginity. And they shall spread the cloak before the elders of the city. So when we look at this, this is, as a father, it's a doggone shame if you think your daughter is pure. And here you are, a lot of fathers are walking their daughters down the aisle thinking that their daughters are pure, but in rebellion, the seducing and the breaking of wedlock has already happened. See, if we return to Torah, return to the covenant, this would clear up a lot of issues that we see in the world today. Okay. Let's look at this, starting at verse 23. If there is a betrothed virgin, okay, a woman bound for marriage, an engaged woman, and a man meets her in the city and lies with her, then you shall bring both of them to the gate of that city, and you shall stone them to death with stones. The young woman, because she did not cry for help when she was in the city. See, look at this. So, as a betrothed woman, if you did not want to take part in this, you would have cried out for help. Instead of crying out for help, you in the back room, the back alley, moaning and groaning. And then if you was not found out, you would have walked down the aisle, and this man would have been thinking he got a virgin, and you already been blown out. Your soil has already been defiled. It says, and the man, because he violated his neighbor's wife. So you shall purge the evil from your midst. What if, you got to understand, we live in a generation that nobody wants to be shamed. But this is public shaming according to Torah. How many times have you seen these videos on the internet where a man is letting his wife go through this ceremony, and then this man outs her right at the doggone wedding ceremony, showing footage that he was lucky enough to have of her getting blown out the week before they got married by another man, and then him walking off. This is the daytime and hour that we live in. Okay? So you look at the shaming that happens biblically versus a daytime and hour where don't nobody want to be shamed. The minute you start talking about this, people talk about, well, the Bible say don't judge, and they can't even quote the rest of that passage. Verse 25, but if in the open country a man meets a young woman who is betrothed, and the man seizes her and lies with her, listen to this, then only the man who lay with her shall die. But you shall do nothing to the young woman. She has committed no offense punishable by death. This is the stuff that people try to diminish the judgment for. For this case is like that of a man attacking and murdering his neighbor because he met her in the open country, and though the betrothed woman cried for help, there was no one to rescue her. We live in a generation to where these people want to waste taxpaying dollars behind rapists. You got men taking, especially priests, Catholic priests. They've got something in their teaching that says a young girl can have sex before a certain age and still be counted as a doggone virgin. This is sick. And these are the people you going to get. These are the people that's governing your form of worship. Let's keep going. Verse 28, if a man meets a virgin who is not betrothed, listen to this, and seizes her and lies with her, and they are found, then the man who lay with her shall give to the father of the young woman 50 shekels of silver, and she shall be his wife because he has violated her. Ain't nobody sitting up here talking about men violating women through acts of fornication and sowing seed in them unrighteously. I got a video on this channel that I highly encourage women to watch, where this man was sitting up here talking about, man, I'm in the club with 3 STDs, still pulling women. And these women was giving this man time of day. You got to understand, these women was uncovered. These women didn't have nobody. You got to understand, as a woman, a man's or your father's protection is no good without your obedience. You got to think about that man having 3 STDs and boasting about it. This is a man that's openly defiling soil, putting disease in the daughters of Zion. And these women walking around wondering why they burning and twitching, and him taking no accountability for it. You know, giving your daughter a curfew or putting these boundaries in place for the daughters of Zion as a father has to be coupled with teachings of why. You don't get a do-over when it comes to your virginity as a woman. You don't get a do-over when it comes to violating a woman as a man. That's done. And all thanks to Hamashiach, we have the gift of being able to repent, to change our ways. We're living in a time where men and women don't want to change their ways. There are no fruits of repentance. If a man meets a virgin who is not betrothed and seizes her and lies with her, and they are found, then the man who lay with her shall give to the father. You got to think with how many fathers we have out here. These men is not giving up 50 shackles. As a father, you shouldn't be, your daughter has a boyfriend and this man has not fulfilled no kind of duty to her. They not even thinking about marriage. You asking, hey, what are y'all doing? And it ain't even in his, well, we just having fun. Run that joker off. Run them off. Run them off. Just take your belt off and start whooping ass. As a father, man, you have to truly, this is not an easy job. Very few in righteousness want to hearken unto it and obey Abba Yah's will via Torah. Nah. A lot of fathers, man, will support their daughter being whored out. Will support it. Verse 30, it says, a man shall not take his father's wife so that he does not uncover his father's nakedness. You got to look at P. Diddy Take That Combs and his son sleeping with the same woman. This is defiled soil. But there's always a man that has to come along. You see what it says in verse 25? But if a man in the open country meets a young woman who is betrothed, so you pretty much like a coyote, like a wolf in a field, and here you see it and you prey on it. Man, there is judgments for the way that we have come to live our lives. Statistically, like I said, 1970s, there was 21% of women that walked down the aisle that got married that were virgins. In 2010, only 5% of women will be virgins. You got all these people going to church, all of these people going to religion, but they're not getting any truth. Why? Because their religion has done away with truth. When you say Torah is done away with, you are removing the truth. We wouldn't have so much foolishness and sick, perverted people if men that took virgins and raped women were actually charged and held accountable to take a wife and never divorcing her. So whatever spiritually she's going through your torment, you are held accountable, by being part of her healing process. Now you're going to have to cover that woman. I got a video up talking about some men are too broke to have sex, to cover a woman. But it's promoted in this daytime and hour. It's promoted. Women oftentimes catch most of the shame for being whores. How can you have a whore without a whoremonger? How can you have a hoe without a a doggone unrighteously lustful man that'll doggone bust all up in anything that's got one working leg and a heartbeat. You got men out here that pray over sleeping with dead bodies. Let me see what this is called. What is this called? Let me see. Oh, this is necrophilia. You got men out there that you see them. It's people that work. You have men that work in nursing homes that prey on weak women. There's been people that work in mortuary accused of necrophilia. This woman is lifeless. You sitting up there inserting yourself into this cold, freezer-bound woman. We got some sick men out here. These women ain't out here sick on their own. See, you don't get this in Sunday. You don't get these modern Christendom or Catholic preachers getting in the congregation, looking into the eyes of men, talking about this stuff, ensuring that the fear of Elohim is upon them and they understand the consequences and repercussions of not hearkening unto the voice of Abba Yah. This is some sick stuff that we're dealing with. Man, if your daughters and sons are in these public schools, let me tell you what's going on. There's going to be a great force or pull on your sons to get their little dirty fingers wet. And then what do? Wave them around. Man, let me smell your fingers. You didn't do nothing. And your daughters are sitting up here letting these little boys stick their dirty fingers up in them. And you wonder why, mothers are saying, man, I don't know why my daughter is fast. Why my daughter acting so fast and rebellious. Look what's going on behind the scenes. It's not coming from nowhere. That's why you have to have these sayings, put the fear of Abba Yah in these kids. Remove them up out of this system. Training up a child was not something that the Most High Yah made an exception and said, okay, you can go let the transformers and these effeminate men and these masculine women go raise your daughters and your sons. No, he never said that. He said, you teach them my ways. You train them up in the way that they should go. A lot of kids that's got religious parents that are Christian and Catholic don't never hear nothing like this. They put the onus on everybody else. Well, we're going to let the priest teach all of that stuff because we really don't live it. He don't really leave it in. That's the reason parents is out here deceived. Well, we're going to let the Christian pastor teach because he got a degree in that. You don't need no doggone degree in theology to raise your son or daughter up in righteousness. Some sick stuff out here. Some sick stuff. I encourage you to look at look at your zip code and type in pedophiles in your zip code. You're gonna see women and men. And that'll show you when that map pops up with the zip code and you see all them this is women and men. This stuff is crazy. But in order to ensure that we have good stock in Israel, we cannot ignore the teachings of Torah around breaking wedlock, sexual immorality, fornication, harlotry, whores, and whoremongers. Most High Yah gave us a good word that the average man or woman hates. Let's go to the comments. Let's see. We got Octria Phillips in the house. Shalom. Hey, appreciate it. Appreciate your support. Says, you ain't lying, brother. Hallelujah. To be better. Says, it's hard to change the act of a woman or men when they are not taught in the way that they should go. That's 100% true. Let's see what else we got. The adversary knows that Torah and will make the children walk after sin. It is what is presented in front of them through TV, music, movies, and unrighteousness, teaching in the congregation and homes. Man, since you mentioned that, I want you to understand. We had Vivica A. Fox recently get up and say, she's over 50, saying she's ready to settle down. But you got to look at the soil. Look at the men on the back end, 50 Cent, all of these men that have taken part in. She didn't get there on her own. Men, if you are dealing with a woman that does not want to be covered, does not want to be a wife, is not looking for a husband, man, there's no need in you taking advantage of these women, because that's oftentimes what is happening. Just because a woman is giving it to you, filling you, spread eagle, don't mean you got to take it. And know good and well you're not trying to fulfill a duty to her. People very quick to talk about how nobody wants a Vivica A. Fox, but she just didn't have all this sex with herself. There were some men along the way. And I guarantee you, behind a lot of this sex, there was no plan for marriage. It was just, we gonna do what is socially acceptable. You gonna get in here and do all this freakiness, and then we gonna part ways as if we haven't done no wrong. Those statistics reveal a lot. To Be Better says, how many of them was filled with an evil ruach when they approached a woman and vice versa? Altria Phillips said, they send me postcards daily in the mail. That's why my mom didn't allow me to wrestle with boys while I was young, and the same with my brother. Hey, that's real. Especially when they start going through puberty, going through the change of the body. Man, this stuff is real. I want you to think how many people in their places of Sunday sun worship are getting any form of truth today. If truth is Torah, they're getting read solely from the letters. They're not even getting read revelations. If they're getting read revelations, they're getting taught rapture, which ain't in there. Man, I hope I said something to help you out on your journey. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Closer to Y'all Ministries, kicking it gun barrel straight.